Okay, hi everybody. My name is Zen Honeycutt, and I am the founding executive director of Moms Across America. And we are here tonight on January 20th to highlight the topic of 5G. And this came onto my radar. It's been over the past couple of years, but has really been pressing in this past couple of months. And this coming Saturday, January 25th, there will be a march around the world, many locations around the world against 5G. And tonight we're going to talk about, is it safe? Why are they marching about it? What is actually happening? What's going on? And we have some people that will address this issue. And we have, let's see, one of them is Zoe Berg, who can't get her video on, but that's okay. We can hear her anyway. And so welcome, Zoe. Zoe is from, let me just do a little bit about her so you know. Let's see. I thought I had your open. Okay, one second. Sorry, everybody. So Zoe is the project director for the Americans for Responsible Technology, which is a nonprofit and coalition of 100 regional organizations across the U.S. that share science-based health concerns associated with the rapid deployment of wireless technology near our homes and schools. And early last year, Americans for Responsible Technology developed 5G Crisis, a project designed to specifically to educate the public about 5G risks and to equip individuals with the resources they need to launch strong and effective 5G pushback efforts in their own communities. So that's a little bit about Zoe, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be on. I have a bunch of questions for you, but first, why don't do you want to say anything else about that, for your introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me speak this evening, Zen, and for all the wonderful work you all do at Moms Across America. We really appreciate it, and we definitely stand with you. It's quite a tumultuous time. I'm really sorry I can't get the video to work. I'm having my boyfriend here is trying to help me as I walk through this, but anyway, so as Zen said, my name is Zoe Berg. I'm the program director of Americans for Responsible Technology and 5G Crisis. And just to reiterate, Americans for Responsible Tech, we're a 501c4 nonprofit organization based in Port Washington in New York, which is about 30 minutes or so outside of Manhattan. So I just wanted to start off this brief talk today kind of defining what wireless radiation is if you're not already familiar. I'll keep it pretty brief since I know we're all pretty cognizant of environmental exposures and different toxicants. So wireless radiation is actually a type of non-ionizing radiation which is emitted by all wireless devices. So those new AirPods you got for Christmas, they emit wireless radiation. Your Wi-Fi router, your cell phone, your laptop, your smartwatch, wireless baby monitors, all of those wireless devices emit non-ionizing radio frequency microwave radiation, which is the fancy term for wireless radiation. And it was once believed that non-ionizing radiation could not damage DNA like ionizing radiation can, X-rays, gamma rays, UV. But a robust body of peer-reviewed independent science has found that not only does wireless radiation cause significant DNA damage in biological systems, but it also has an adverse impact on reproductive health, neurological and cognitive function, and can even cause certain types of cancer. And according to the International Agency for Research on Cancer, children actually absorb up to 10 times more wireless radiation in the bone marrow of the skull compared to adults because children have thinner skulls and higher brain conductivity. And interestingly, in 2011, the World Health Organization classified wireless radiation as a 2B carcinogen, which puts it in the same category as lead and diesel exhaust, which is kind of universally known. Both of those things are universally known to be bad, which is why I bring it up. Once they're in the same category with another, you figure, okay, we have a big problem here. Most notably, though, the U.S. National Toxicology Program, which is a branch of the U.S. National Institutes of Health, recently completed a $30 million cell phone radiation study They tested Sprague-Dawley rats, which are commonly used animals to test pharmaceuticals, pesticides, that kind of thing. And they found clear evidence of cancer associated with prolonged exposure to just 2G, 3G wireless radiation frequencies. And that this
Okay, I'm sorry, Zoe, for 1 second. So can you say who, I'm going to interrupt you now and then and just ask some questions if that's okay. To benefit people that are, I'm thinking that they might be thinking. And if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to jump in. It just, we want to make sure she gets to her topic, but I also want to ask a few questions now and then. Who conducted that study again?
The U.S. National Toxicology Program, which is a branch of the U.S. National Institute.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I play devil's advocate for 1 moment? There's an article. Can you guys see which one I'm sharing now? Wait, let me see. Let me just make sure I'm sharing the right article. There's this article that just came out by the New York Times, right? The 5G health hazard that isn't. And they explain that there's this one doctor that had a chart showing how the frequency of the 5G, it gets higher, right? It's much higher than other forms of radiation. And they're saying that the problem is that in his research, Dr. Curry looked at the studies on how radio waves affect tissues isolated in the lab and misinterpreted the results as applying to cells deep inside the human body, and his analysis failed to recognize the protective effect of human skin. At a higher ratio frequency, the skin acts as a barrier, shielding the internal organs, including the brain, from exposure. So human skin blocks even the higher frequencies of sunlight. Did this study that you're talking about with the National Toxicology Program, did they not use rat skin? Like how?
Okay.
You know
So,
like
yeah.
how?
I'm really glad that you brought this issue up, Zen, because it is a common question that we get. So the New York Times has actually put out 2 rather long pieces on health effects or health risks associated with 5G. And for lack of a better phrase, completely poo-pooed everything that the scientific community has been saying for the last couple of decades. Now, for this author, this was actually written by William Broad, who is a very well-known science writer for the New York Times. And we were really, really, really surprised and frustrated by this article. The fact that he tries to boil this issue down and bring it all back to one scientist that, to be quite frank, none of us in this, in this community of, people that are very knowledgeable about research and literature on this issue had ever heard of. This was what we would call a hit piece. Now, yes, this is a complete hit piece on the risks associated with 5G, on the scientific community that has been studying this for decades, as I said. The New York Times, unfortunately, it's hard to know where to find the truth nowadays. The New York Times actually has a joint ongoing initiative with Verizon to start one of the first 5G journalism labs.
You can see it right there, the ad right in front of you.
Right. Yeah. Right, exactly. So obviously it's in their best interest not to have the public, worried about this, seeing as 5G is slated to revolutionize journalism. You can, be at the crime scene. You can see through your detective's eyes, that kind of thing. So anyway, I would really encourage everyone on this call that, comes across this study. I actually forwarded Zen right before a link to Dr. Deborah Davis's response to this particular piece. Dr. Deborah Davis is a well-renowned toxicologist, epidemiologist. She used to work within the Clinton administration. She is a very vocal doctor. Can you see me?
No, but we've got feedback.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Okay, wait. So I can see you now. You've got 2 different screens. I'll just remove the other one.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, maybe that's why we're getting it. funky noise.
Can you see me?
Yes. Okay.
Yay!
Let
Thank
me
you so
pivot you
much.
on you so we can see who you are. Okay.
Okay, that's the one benefit of wireless radiation right now.
All right, so I'm going to share that article that you just talked about so that people can see which one we're talking about here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not the first time that the New York Times would have gotten it spectacularly wrong on things, right? So I just wanted to hear what your feedback is on that. So if you are interested in finding out, why the New York Times got it wrong, you can look up this article, jot it down, or I can put the link in the chat box. I know my sister sent me that link to the New York Times and said, what do you think about this? And I said, I just think that the New York Times is extremely conservative and probably has ties to, the communications industry. And I suppose it turns out that that's the way it is. So we appreciate you sending this article over, and we can look into more data. I mean, are you saying basically it's wrong that these waves do get through to the skin and into the brain?
Absolutely. So basically, the shorter the frequency, the shorter the wavelength, the less able the wave is able to penetrate the skin. So these longer frequencies, 2G, 3G, 4G, can actually penetrate very deeply into the skin. And what this guy was saying, what William Broad was writing, is that 5G, because these frequencies are so high, they won't penetrate the body as deeply. But that does not mean that there will be no effects. I mean, we're talking, effects of the skin, of the sweat glands, of the eye, macular degeneration, and we don't really discuss either the synergistic effects associated with these kinds of frequencies with pre-existing radiation that we're exposed to. So what happens when you combine 4G effects with 5G effects on the human body? I mean, these are things that have not been really studied. I mean, I personally have not come across a study of the synergistic effects. There may be one out there, but this kind of just puts 5G in a vacuum instead of considering that we are exposed to many different sources, to many different frequencies all at the same time, and what effect that might have as well. And then, as you'll read in Dr. Deborah Davis's article, she basically pinpoints where this whole thing went wrong.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can see that there are some cell phones that will use 600 megahertz instead of the 3000 that they were referring to, or 3 gigahertz. So that there's a combination of the different megahertz. And so that is why it can be harmful, or in reference to that particular part of the frequency. So I just want to know, I think we have Alex Crone, I'm guessing. Is that you, Alex, with the Nike hat? Is that you? Okay, I don't think I can hear you. You might need to turn something up. Yeah, no, we can't hear you right now.
Okay.
Oh, no, now we can. Okay, yes. So Alex is from Santa Rosa. He's also an activist around 5G. Did you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I just want to say that 4G is the backbone of 5G. So you have these frequencies of 4G that will be running and penetrate the body really well. And then you're just throwing higher frequencies on top of that for Verizon. Actually, T-Mobile's using lower frequencies, the 600 megahertz, but we won't get into that. But to pretend like the skin is some magical shield is crazy. It has tons of nerves. It's a huge organ. And so you're having the 4G that's penetrating, and then you're hitting 5G that's going to, it doesn't penetrate quite as deeply, but it still has really, really harmful biological effects. So that article is ridiculous. And New York Times, you already hit on it, has a huge conflict of interest with Verizon. So.
Okay, great. And then I'm going to share just one more, just for, playing the devil's advocate fully. The first article that I heard about that talked about 5G was the one that talked about the unexplained bird deaths occurring in the park in The Hague in Netherlands, how there were so many. This is the bag of birds, Aaron at Health Nut News showed. And of course, Snopes said it's just wrong. We know that Snopes Snopes is sided on the side of GMOs, right, and glyphosate. So and they just said that what they ended up doing in this park was banning dogs, because for some reason they thought the birds were poisoned by some sickness that the dogs had. But of course they don't explain what actually happened. You know, they have no other, they just continue to investigate the cause of deaths, and they have no other explanation. So have we heard of any other deaths like this with birds, you know, around 5G? Has this happened in other places? Do you know?
There was one in North Carolina that happened recently. A bunch of birds lost their way and flew into a building, about 400 birds or something like that. But yeah, I don't know too much about that article. I'm a little hesitant to latch onto that specific one in the Netherlands. I've heard different things about that. Zoe might have more information, but when you talk about insects and birds and things like that, that's where the higher frequencies are actually a lot more dangerous to insects, because the smaller the wave is, once it matches the size of, say, an insect, their absorption goes way up. So 5G and the higher frequencies are going to be harmful for insects, is really harmful for insects as well. Birds, they navigate with magnetism. So it wouldn't, you know, it's crazy to think that putting really dense magnetic fields in their environment isn't going to mess with their navigation and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to also add that the military has been doing a lot of experiments with these high frequencies, and that's why we've had, throughout the whole Pacific region and wherever there are military bases, we've had huge amounts of dolphins beaching, we've had whales beaching, we've had birds dying, and they all seem to be close to military bases where they're experimenting with this type of technology. And you're right, Alex, the skin absorbs, I mean, magnesium, the glands also absorb. All these frequencies affect not only the inside of the body through the skin, but also the glands and our hormones.
There's some good research out of Israel showing how the sweat glands pick up the 5G frequencies like an antenna. And so, yeah, there's actually some, it's not a synergistic study, but showing the biological effect of the higher frequencies on the skin and the sweat glands and things like that.
Can anybody point to an article or any research that shows how 5G actually harms us? Does it affect like mitochondrial function? Does it damage cells? How does it actually function in harming?
I mean, I had the first article I read, which I thought was fabulous, which you guys may have heard of, was Elux magazine. Talks about the dangers of 5G, how it causes single and double DNA strand breaks and causes mutations. And it's really good primer, I think. And I can pull it up if you want, because it gives a bulleted list of the harms. But I'm not the experts like these guys are. So
the U.S. military in the late 1990s did a literature review on the biological effects of millimeter waves, and I suggest people read that article. It's pretty.
Did you mention that again? What is that called?
You know what? I don't know the name of the article off the top of my head, but it's the U.S. military. It's a literature review, and I think it was published in the late 1990s, 1998. And it's one of the most comprehensive papers I've read on, you know, literature review on the biological effects. They talk a lot about plants and insects and other living organisms. But, you know, when we talk about 5G, just RF radiation, RF microwave radiation in general, there's over 20,000 studies on the biological effects of it. So it's been very well studied, and I wouldn't get too caught up in separating 5G from 4G. It's all bad. The problem with it is the densification of 5G and the infrastructure.
That's a very good point. I think some people are thinking, oh, this is just a new thing, like they did with GMOs 2.0. No, it's not a new thing. What you're pointing on is it's riding on the back of 4G, and they're just adding in higher frequencies and sometimes lower frequencies, and it's closer together. And what's really frightening to me is seeing pictures of of these towers right outside of like a beautiful Victorian home in San Francisco, like just right on the corner, and, you know, or some neighborhood where they put it right outside of somebody's home, and people don't have any say so about that. That's
well, what's happening with the FCC OTARD ruling? Was that ever done where they were going to, you know, Will you be able to climb up onto your roof and install a tower without your permission? Does
Is
anybody
that, is that a question for me?
yeah.
Yeah, let's get that. Yeah, go back to Zoe, see if you have any other questions for her.
So the OTARD rule, as Anne is referring to, is called the over-the-air reception device rule that the FCC actually changed for the first time in 2002. In its original form was in the 1996 Telecommunications Act. And what the industry is trying to do through the FCC is now revise the OTARD rules from 2002 and allow telecommunications companies to approach private homeowners and offer them a nominal fee to install their 5G equipment on rooftops. So this would, there would be no public hearing, there would be no public notice. These things would just kind of pop up. You get, $1,000 a year and maybe free, Verizon Fios service, and you would put their 5G equipment on your home. So that is extremely concerning because that definitely changes the topography of the battlefield. But as far as I know, there's not been any movement on OTARD. They could do that any day. They could not do it any day. We have been, Americans for Responsible Technology, a small team of us has been going down to Washington, D.C., and we've been raising awareness about OTARD to some key legislative staff members. There is actually, I would say 95% of the people we spoke with had no idea what OTARD was. None of them, which, it does make sense. It is kind of it's not really front and center. It's kind of an issue that was buried away for a while, but now they're trying to repurpose it for 5G rollouts. So they don't know about it. They have been aware of it. Ed Markey's office in particular is very interested in that, which is the senator in Massachusetts. So anyway, there's been no movement on that. That's the long-winded answer to your question.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Sure.
We've covered what are the actual signs of the health risks? Like, what are people saying when a 5G goes up outside their house? What are they saying they feel or experience?
So basically, it's really tough to, so what we have is what's called EHS, electrohypersensitivity, whereas people kind of hit a wall, and when they've been exposed to a lot of wireless radiation throughout their life, usually people that have multiple chemical sensitivities are kind of predisposed to developing EHS. People that are exposed to Wi-Fi routers, or, if they walked through Times Square, oh my goodness, that would just be a disaster. We're talking headaches, we're talking tinnitus, which is ringing of the ears, nosebleeds, insomnia, fatigue. And that's the issue with this, is that a lot of the symptoms associated with EHS are also associated with other issues as well. But that, it shouldn't belittle the importance of them and the significance of them. So it's hard to say right now what 5G is exactly doing. It's not been around very long, and there's not a ton of epidemiological data for us to work off of. But I was reading an article from Switzerland where I believe Switzerland or Sweden. I always get the two mixed up. It was Switzerland, I believe. Where this technology, it was one of the first places where 5G was implemented, and people were complaining in a popular magazine. They had been noting, headaches, they weren't able to sleep, they were feeling very ill. And I would kind of suspect that a lot of people are feeling these things right now and don't know why they're feeling them. And I think that they're going to their doctors and explaining their symptoms, but the doctors are misdiagnosing because very few, traditional conventional doctors are aware that EHS even exists. So we need to increase awareness, obviously. That is, educating is the foundation upon which this movement builds for safer technology.
Okay, great. Well,
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please do.
Well, I have a comment and then a question. So I don't know if many of the people online have watched the 5G Crisis Summit with all the doctors from around the world that had incredible information of what's going on. If you Google that, you can find it. Unfortunately, now you're going to probably have to buy it. And I watched the entire summit, and it's pretty crazy. You know, there's been studies about it affecting your detox pathways. I know Dr. Diedrich Klinghardt will not take somebody that has an autoimmune or another condition if they won't reduce their exposure to EMFs, because he feels like you can't get better. You can't detox your body if you're constantly being exposed to EMFs. Okay, so that's my comment. My question is, my big concern, I mean, the whole thing is very concerning. My biggest concern are the satellites that they're proposing, you know, to go up by Elon Musk of Amazon and Elon Musk is the Tesla guy, right? Yeah.
SpaceX, yes.
Yeah, and the Amazon and Jeff, yeah.
Jeff Bezos, yeah.
Yeah, about the 20,000 satellites they're proposing to go up, which if this happens, it's going to blanket every square inch of our planet. And that is terrifying. So,
well, he already launched some at the end of March. He launched, what, 60 of them, I think, at the end of March?
Yeah, 20,000 though. I mean, so my question to Zoe or Alex is, what do you know about this and what do we do?
So I'm just going to dive in. So I'm not very knowledgeable or well-versed in the satellite conversation. What I would suggest though is that we have a radio show that we do every week, every Tuesday at WBAI in Brooklyn. And we recently interviewed Arthur Furstenberg, who is very well versed in the satellites issue. And you can actually find that complete interview online at Green Street Radio. Is it .org or .com? I can look at greenstreetradio.com, and it will be very visible.
And what was his name again?
Arthur Furstenberg. He's been involved in the wireless issue for decades. He wrote a book called The Invisible Rainbow. I would like to just quickly say we were not, so I know I was introduced as 5G Crisis. We were not in any way, in shape or form involved in the 5G Crisis Summit, which you referred to, Carol. That was Josh Del Sol from Washington State. So he headed that. 5G Crisis is separate. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. But the satellites, yes, extremely concerning. A new article came out in Scientific American today saying that the FCC, if they were to be sued, they would probably lose on the grounds that they did not consider, appropriate or necessary environmental considerations in approving, SpaceX's plan. There's also a lot of concern about, astronomers' ability to map the night sky as well. I mean, these are not as direct issues to what you're referring to, but they are also issues that are being discussed. But yes, full blanket of the earth, everyone, get wireless access to everyone, 2G, 3G, parts of Africa, places where they wouldn't normally have service. That's the end goal. Very, very scary, very serious. Definitely need to learn more about that. I'm more focused on what's going on planet Earth, but what's going on in space is incredibly important as well. So, but I don't want to mislead you and say I know much about that.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna find out more about that, and maybe I'll interview this Arthur Furstenberg on my radio show, because it's very, very concerning to me.
Can I say one?
I just want to acknowledge that it's after 5:30, and I asked our illustrious guests to be on here tonight just for half an hour, just to respect their time. So if you do need to go, I completely understand if you need to do that. and if not, if you can be on with us a little bit longer, I do need to address some other news, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what you can do. And so as Carol just asked, I want to highlight that Saturday, January 25th, this coming Saturday, there is a global 5G protest day. And there are events planned all around the world. In these, you can see here as I'm sharing my screen, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Canada, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, France, Germany. I mean, there are a lot of them. Hungary, Greece, Ireland, Italy, Norway, Netherlands, New Zealand, Philippines, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Serbia, Slovenia, South Africa, Spain, Sweden, a lot in Sweden. Switzerland, the activists in Switzerland are amazing. They're so active there. And United Kingdom and let's see, and the United States. And the ones in the United States are in Alaska, Arkansas, Bainbridge Island, San Clemente, California, Berkeley. There's another one in Berkeley, there's a couple more in California, or actually a lot in California, almost all in California. Okay, and then Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Hawaii, Michigan, and New York, and Ohio, Pennsylvania, Sedona, Washington, D.C., Washington, Seattle, and Wisconsin.
Yeah, so Zen, I was just looking on the Wisconsin page, and it says if, I don't really see an actual protest, but there's a website for signs, and they want you to take pictures with these signs saying stop 5G and post them. So if you can't go to a public place and join in, you can do this. So it's right.
Take a picture of yourself and like that, right?
Yeah, that's on the Wisconsin for Safe Technology page.
Okay.
Can you post a link to this document you just showed us?
Yeah, sure. I will. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So they're saying here's how to participate. Use social media. Do hashtag Stop 5G, Stop 5G Wisconsin. Right. Post pictures of yourself and your family and your pets holding Stop 5G signs. And so basically have a social media march, right, is what they're, yeah, so you can do that. And so if you don't have a march in your area, you can do this. You can march on social media and just blanket social media with information about 5G. So I just want to share, okay, so here's the 5G crisis website page. And then on Moms Across America, we have 3 articles, one on the mysterious German birth defects, where there was a town that had 5G that rolled out and they had people with birth defects. Another one that's EMF resources. We have a ton of resources on here that you can check out and share with your friends and family. And also another article on 5G dirty electricity. There is an article also on how parents demand a removal of a cell tower from an elementary school after 4 students and 3 teachers developed cancer. And that was out on Natural Health. So I will post the link to this protest day article here. So does anybody else have questions for our guests?
Just like what we deal with glyphosate, there's been no testing done with the combination of all this technology, has there? So
as far as I know, yes, that's correct. Joel Moskowitz, the director of community health at UC Berkeley, I believe he's, he would know more about that than I would. But as far as I know, no, I have not seen anything on the synergistic effects. I would just quickly like to, Zen, if I could just talk a little bit about what you can do individually to take action on a more long-term basis. While this, we're completely in support of the, yes? Hello?
Oh, sorry, I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. All right. Keep going, Zoe.
Oh, okay. No worries. I thought I was lost. No, but just on a more long-term timeline, I just wanted to discuss some action steps you can take as an individual to address 5G concerns. So first of all, what I don't think what we're going to start reiterating much more clearly is that delay is your best friend ever when it comes to this technology. Even if you can't stop it, even if you can't implement the moratorium or, you know, whatever it is you want to do, delay is really another is a synonym for winning in this circumstance. There's nothing more agitating to a wireless company than delay, than impacting their market share. And, you know, by the time something happens, when this stuff might be implemented, you will have bought yourself a lot of time to grow your local 5G action group, to raise awareness, and potentially for laws to change in your favor. So delay is your best friend. Moms, what we found, as we've collected data on, you know, through social media, through our website engagement, we found that usually the demographic most receptive to this issue is moms and grandparents and pregnant women. So I would encourage you to use whatever materials you have, or if you're in the process of, you know, creating and crafting materials, that's a really good target audience to reach out to. They've been most active so far. Obviously, that's a generalization, but that's what we've seen through the data, that in, you know, they've been most active. On 5gcrisis.com, where you just were, we actually have a toolkit under the Take Action, what's it called? The Take Action tab. This toolkit actually has a ton of free materials. Yeah, there we are. Thank you so much. So there's the toolkit. Now, here are all of these free materials that you can download. We have created sample municipal codes that we've drafted in tandem with some very well-seasoned, very well-seasoned telecom lawyers. What else? We have, yes, there it is. Thank you so much for scrolling through this. We have, okay, so this booklet, Wireless Radiation and Undeniable Risk to Human Health, that booklet has been an unbelievable resource for folks trying to provide their local officials with the big picture as far as health risks are concerned with wireless radiation. It has over 60 citations in it from the most reputable sources around: NASA, EPA before it was totally screwed up, and a lot of others. So I would highly suggest that if your officials are not aware of this issue. We have a canvassing guide, how to canvass your community. So that was something that I was going to suggest.
1 second. If you could mute yourself if you're not talking, we'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. Whoever's coughing, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so keep going. So you've got a toolkit here that's available.
Yeah, so the toolkit is really a fabulous resource, and it would help people that are interested in kind of initiating their own local 5G action effort. It would make for a really effective start to that.
So what would you say is the most effective thing to do to get, or just to start with, to download this wireless radiation and undeniable risk to human health? Would it be to bring it to your mayor or to your city council? I know in Encinitas, they actually stopped 5G in certain areas around schools and stuff like that. And
Correct.
So I don't know if anybody knows their strategy, how they did that. What's the first step that you would take?
Okay, if it were me, what I've done actually, so I'm from Westchester County in New York, and I've spoken at a couple of town board meetings. I've shared with my town board a bunch of this information regarding wireless. Basically, the first thing to do, I would never inundate my local officials with information because it can become very overwhelming, especially for people that are unaware of the issue. So I kind of feed them a little bit of material over a longer period of time. And all of the material I provide them with is corroborated via peer-reviewed independent research. It's bulletproof stuff, so that you pose yourself as a very legitimate and trustworthy source, which we are. And then what I would do, so I would give them that booklet on wireless radiation, have them kind of look through it. Then I would present to them the sample municipal code that we've drafted, which is available through the toolkit. Now, because of a lot of legal decisions that have been made within the last couple of months, virtually all local and state control over the placement of 5G enabled small cell transmitters has been preempted federally. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room legally to reject 5G equipment in public rights of way, right? So what we've had to do is we had to get really creative. How can we thwart and discourage telecommunications companies from coming in and applying to put their equipment in our public rights of way? So we talk about aesthetics. We make an aesthetics code that's hard to meet. We talk about property value depletion concerns. We talk about, random testing, radio frequency testing of their equipment. So if they don't fall within the FCC's, if their equipment emits more than what's allowable by the FCC, they're fined a big amount. And they will not agree to that. They will really dislike that, because obviously these telecoms are operating in a very competitive environment, and the higher you turn the power up, the faster your devices will work. So they will turn them up as high as they want to, or as high as they need to offer their customers competitive service. So anyway, that's what I would do first. I mean, obviously, the more people that are vocal about this issue, the more pressure you can impose on your local officials to make something happen. Tomorrow for our Take Action Tuesday, so every week our organization comes out with a collective action, take action that, people across the country do, whether it's to call a specific member of Congress in response to something they did regarding 5G, whether it's to sign a petition last week we did a petition to the FDA Center for Devices and Radiological Health Ombudsman, Mr. Abby Desta, which is going to be very interesting. So tomorrow we're actually launching a resolution that we would encourage different localities to adopt. And while legally, sorry, I'm just plugging this in because my phone's dying. So legally, whatever you pass in a resolution is non-binding, but it does further legitimize that there are concerns. It might generate media attention within your community, which would then indirectly help you grow your local action group. I mean, a lot of these things have snowball effects. So that's just something to consider. There's really no one good place to start, I'd say. I think it depends on the relationship that you have with your local officials, on what,
Which local officials are the best ones to approach?
Yeah. So I would honestly, I guess that also depends as well. Who do you think is going to be most sympathetic to your cause?
But would it be the city council or the mayor or public?
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
Sorry, I'd say the first thing to do, and I've used 5G Crisis website for a lot of resources. Go to your planning department, find out if there's any applications for small cells, get all the addresses that they're wanting to put them, and go door to door. Go to those neighborhoods, go to the residential zones. The people who are having them put in front of their house, you can take a picture, show them the permit. They are the ones that you need to gain. And in Santa Rosa, we've slowed them down quite a bit because we got a head start. We found out where they were applying for, and we went to the residential zones that they were, and we've gained lots and lots of support against these. So I'd start with that. Get the people on your side.
Your planning department then.
The planning. Go down to your city hall or county, whatever planning, and that's where the applications are processed. And you need to know what carriers are looking at your city and what applications are in, which ones are already put in. You need to know all the addresses. This is all public information. Get used to being able to do a public records request and getting this information, and let the people know, because they're usually not notifying these people. Let the residents know that they're going to have a small cell put in front of their house. And these are the people that will be on your side, 90%.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with Alex. I also think they're taking preemptive action is a good idea. So even if there aren't small cell applications pending in your community, you want to adopt these municipal codes and your aesthetics codes before they come in, so that they have to jump through hoops and it becomes a less suitable location for them to even install anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's that. That actually happened in Western Springs, Illinois. And if you ever want access to the letter that that the village council sent to Crown Castle, it was fabulous. And they actually rescinded their application to install small cells after that was sent to them. So I'm happy to share that with you too, with all of you if you like.
Okay, let me just jump in about one more thing before we need to start wrapping up. But
yeah,
the March this Saturday, I want to really impress upon people that if you go to it, please, I would suggest, and maybe you have some other suggestion, but this canvassing sign-up sheet would be a great way to start gathering support, right? You bring a clipboard and a pen, and you bring this sign-up sheet right here that's on 5G Crisis. Now, once they get emails and sign-up sheets, is there a way for them to share them with you guys so that there's like a main hub of people who are interested and sign them up? Can you guys take that data off an Excel spreadsheet or something and add it to your list? Or would that just be for them to use locally to plan in their local region?
That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. I mean, we would love to add these people to our Take Action Tuesday database because it's all a numbers game. The more people you have on your database, the more people that are going to take action that day. Mm-hmm. So obviously, if you would like to scan a PDF of whatever, the signatures that you collect and email them to me, I will manually input them into our system. If you want to also keep them for your local 5G action efforts, that's great too. I would suggest creating a MailChimp account if you like. It's a great way to communicate with a lot of people in a short amount of time. You can do, I think, up to 100 subscribers for free. So yes, please send them on my way.
And so they have rally signs as well. And so I really do encourage you to go to the site that has the Stop 5G International and get involved this weekend. And also get your signs and your sign up sheet so that you connect and coordinate with other people and learn more information about what's going on. And there's many resource sites. Do you want to mention before we close off with both of you, Alex and Zoe, what are your favorite, resource sites or anything else that you want to mention?
I use 5gcrisis.com quite a bit. Very easy to use. I cut and paste their research page and use that. I've used the poll signs to go to the neighborhoods. One thing I'd add is when you go to the neighborhoods, you want them to contact your city council. And so you give your city council and your mayor information to those people. Trust is they have great references and resources. It's a little not quite as user friendly. It's kind of a lot of stuff on there. There are a ton of great resources though. I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is some great calls to action are to go to your planning, so print out get that guide on 5G Crisis, go to your planning department and ask them for the addresses of where they're installing these things.
Yeah, and I guess it would depend on where your city is, right? If you're a city that hasn't had any applications yet, then you would want to start trying to develop an ordinance to get ahead of it. But a lot of towns like the one I live in, we're kind of in the middle of it where they're starting to put them in. And so there are already applications and we have actual addresses where they're wanting to put polls. And so that makes it very easy for our group to go to these addresses and gain support. My goal is to go to a neighborhood and get as many of those people from that neighborhood calling their city council representative and complaining, and not just, the more people that are calling in and raising hell about this, the better off you are.
What about going to the city council meetings so that the city council itself says we don't want this in our city? Is that what Encinitas did?
Santa Rosa, we're in that position right now. Our city council has directed the city staff to develop an ordinance, and it's like Zoe said, it's difficult when you're developing an ordinance how to do it in a way where the city's not going to get sued and lose. And so it's kind of walking a tightrope. So right now, city staff, the people who are making the codes, the IT director, and all the people that are doing the day-to-day operations, they're the ones really doing the work. The city council are elected officials, but they're not really doing much. But they're the ones who would be in charge of directing their staff to develop an ordinance. And
okay, and so did Encinitas develop an ordinance that we could use as a template?
It's okay. I don't know exactly where the process. I don't know if they've actually approved an ordinance yet. I would look at Petaluma has a really good one. Mill Valley, Fairfax in Marin has a very good ordinance.
Danville, California.
Where?
Yeah, they just lost the
Danville.
lawsuit. Danville lost the lawsuit a couple days ago. I just got an email. But they all have preference lists. You know, they can't quite cut out residential zones completely, but they make it very difficult to put them in a residential zone, and it's on them to have to prove a significant gap in coverage. And a lot of that is still kind of playing out though, and there's a lot of important court cases in the near future that are going to make a big difference on the power of local authority. So I would recommend people try to convince their city to do kind of a dual ordinance, city or county, where certain decisions, if they go one way, gives the city the authority to kind of have some more restrictions, if that makes sense.
If I could just jump in and say 3 really, really quick things.
Sure.
Completely agree with Alex. Fabulous. Thank you so much. I completely agree. I just want to say, though, that there is a lot of stigma, obviously, associated with getting sued, but I don't think communities should be as afraid as they are to get sued. A lot of these, every town, we're paying a town lawyer to sit on our town board. They're already getting paid through our taxes to do this work. And unless, maybe sometimes you'd need to hire outside counsel to fight telecommunications industry claims. If the town is going to get sued by Verizon for putting them in, or for trying to put them in, the mayor is going to get sued by his constituents for allowing them to get put in. So I guess it just matters.
Absolutely.
Who would you rather get sued by? That's just one thing that popped into my head. Make note of is that actually also on the website we have these. You were asking us what our favorite resources are. So 90% of Americans have no idea that there's any, maybe even more, have no idea that there's a robust body of research on wireless radiation that's legitimate and exposes the real truth about the technology we use every day. So what we really need to do is education is critical here, because the more people that are aware of what's going on around them, the more people that will want to take action and want things to be better. So there are these info cards that we have a little mini online store that we set up recently. It kind of helps us stay afloat a little bit as a nonprofit. And we sell these 411 on 5G info cards, which is a really synthesized overview of the most important research. It's in bullet point form, and it gets people hooked on the issue. And it's not overbearing, but it's really worrisome, and people want to look into it more after they read something like that. So I just wanted to put in a little friendly plug for that. But yeah, absolutely. I think this was very informative.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, both of you, for being on, and for everybody for asking great questions. I want to point out that a lot of this, what you're talking about with the ordinances and why it's so difficult, is because back in 1996, what I just read recently, Clinton passed some law that says that local cities and counties cannot deny, telecom from coming in and installing whatever they want. So we have I don't want to say enemies, but we have people on both political parties or both sides that are pulling stunts that really do not allow us to have our personal freedoms and rights. So, this is something that we really do need to educate our senators and representatives about as well. And I think you've both offered some great resources and information and helped us to wrap our heads around that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I have a few things that I want to cover in closing that are not about 5G. So if everybody could stay with me for another 5 minutes or so, is that good?
Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Great. Okay, so I want to share with everybody that on Moms Across America, we posted an article today, which is I think it's very important. I sent a letter to the EPA about it. there's two new studies that are really critical. One of them just came to my attention because I was actually named in an article that was trying to debunk this study. And they were saying that Moms Across America, of course, was being, you know, like overly cautious or something. So they called us out. And so I brought my attention to this article. And the article was about this study that came out actually a little while ago, but it wasn't completely on my radar. Maybe I posted about it, but didn't write an article about it. And this study shows that the impact to the immediate generation of animals exposed to glyphosate was minimal or low, you know, but keep in mind that was only glyphosate that they were exposing animals to. But the third and fourth generations with no further glyphosate exposure were statistically significantly even more harmed. I'm sorry, I got to change the wording there. So I asked the EPA, is this the legacy that you want to leave your great-grandchildren? They won't be able to retract their decision or the harm to them. And I'm asking them to revoke the license of glyphosate. And you can see some of the charts here. This is the first generation exposed, and then here's the second and the third for ovary disease frequency. This is female kidney disease frequency. You can see it's like quadruple by the time it's the third generation. And in tumor frequency, the first generation, nothing, no tumors, but the second or third generation, much high. I mean, you know, much higher. And the same thing with, I don't know what parturition abnormalities are. They sound like organ ones, and it just doesn't sound good to me at all. So this study is extremely important to show that glyphosate is impactful for not just our current generation, which is insanely frightening, because what we're seeing in our current generation is not minimal harm. We're seeing an incredible amount of harm. And what my point in this article is that glyphosate has been shown to increase the harmful impact of other environmental toxins. And this study that shows a greater impact to the third and fourth generations does not include any synergistic effects of other toxins which our children are being exposed to. So imagine that they're also being exposed to any thousands of the 84,000 chemicals that have been approved by the EPA, and imagine what the harmful impact could be to them in the next, you know, third or fourth generation. So that brings us to this next article, which is brand new and came out today. And this is by Robert Navio. And in his article, it's a paper, it's a perspective. He points out all the different environmental toxin impacts to children and adults and teens. And he points out that it's a fact now that over 40% of children, 50% of teens, and 60% of adults in America today have a chronic illness. And he points out the real impact on our healthcare costs. So it's not just, you know, an environmental, it's not just detrimental to the environment or to our marriages. You know, over 80% of marriages that have a child with special needs, they get divorced, right? So there's an impact on our society. There's an impact on their potential, their future growth. But also he talks about how, you know, that the cost of healthcare in the US is expected to exceed 5.5 trillion by 2025. Folks, that's 5 years away. And that will derail the economic prosperity, not just in this country, but in many nations around the world. And so the EPA potentially, or which they have declared actually, that they're going to renew glyphosate with some restrictions, with some enforceable restrictions. This is really just a death sentence, not just for future generations of humans, but for our country as a viable world power and for life on the planet. And what Robert Navio says here is extreme. I mean, this is a brilliant scientist, okay? This guy has all the access to all the, you know, other scientists and information and data and studies that he could get his hands on. But he says that people around the world, if this is not changed, right, people around the world will fall prey to chronic illness in greater numbers. The land and the seas will become disease-causing waste dumps. Our faltering immune systems will make us vulnerable to untreatable microbial infections and disabling autoimmune diseases. New chronic and degenerative disease will emerge. And the cost from illness and threats to our social fabric will bankrupt communities, states, and nations. This is a very apocalyptic statement, but this is where we're headed. if we do not stop environmental toxins from poisoning our families. And so we really must demand that the EPA does the right thing and make those calls as we put out. We'll add at the bottom of this article, there's a phone number for the to call the EPA. We put a call out on Friday when we launched that a funny little video. But here's the actual study, and I will put a link to the bottom on the bottom of our chat box. And there's this other study as well. This is the one with the transgenerational inheritance. I'll put a link to that. And here's the more recent article put out too, called Toxic Hangover, How the EPA is Approving New Products with Dangerous Pesticides. It committed to phasing out. So this current administration is reapproving all of these very toxic pesticides that, were supposed to, many of them which were supposed to be banned. So I'm giving you the link to the first article, and the first paper. And then now I'm giving you the link to the other, the transgenerational article. And this is the link to the Sustainable Pulse one, which came out recently. So not to overwhelm everybody, but this is really, not a time to say, glyphosate is on its way out because of all these lawsuits and we can just sort of rest on our laurels and not do anything about this. This is a really very serious issue that our current administration is allowing all of these chemicals just to go through and approving them willy-nilly. I can't implore everybody enough to do something about electing somebody into office that will actually do something about this. If it means we don't go on vacation, if it means that we, or an expensive vacation anyway, if you take some of your money you normally donate to other charities and you donate to one of the political candidates that's not funded by big ag, big pharma, or big oil, if your kids don't get, Vans shoes, they get Target shoes instead. We need to make some choices here that actually put money in the right direction of people who are going to make decisions to protect our country.
I'm going to taking a vacation day on Thursday and going to Madison to a Senate hearing about alternative and complementary medicine not being licensed.
So that's your vacation, right?
But I have to tell you what a great feeling it is to be out there with boots on the ground doing something. And I'm sure everybody here who does the same thing can attest to the fact that it's very empowering and
it's rejuvenating. It really is. It's way more rejuvenating to do something about this than it is to sit at home and, watch another, Netflix thing and not do anything about it and be depressed, right? So now I'm not saying to not take care of yourself, but I'm imploring everybody to find some funds that you normally do not ever, have, and donate them to a political candidate that will, that's not funded by big ag, big pharma, or big oil. And I'm not saying who that is. I think there are a couple out there that might do some, good things, but we cannot have the status quo. If it keeps going like this, as you can see from these articles, it's not going to go well. So I appreciate your time. I do have another call that I have to go to. Michelle was on today and we didn't get to talk about vaccine wins or anything. Michelle, real quick, do you want to mention anything in the health freedom area?
Thank you so much, Zen. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the 5G folks that spoke tonight. This is a whole new field of information, and I love, Zen, that you are uniting activists and committed people into one place, because at the end of the day, we're all fighting the same thing, which is corruption, which is regulatory control, which is industry capture over our regulatory agencies and our politicians. So I really, really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much. And as far as health freedom is concerned, I really just want to invite everyone to check out nvicadvocacy.org, which is National Vaccine Information Center. They're monitoring bills across the country. And health freedom rights are being stripped from parents all over the place. So whether you live in California, New York, or anywhere in between, I invite you to take a look at the fact that you may or may not have a choice about what happens to your body or your children's bodies. And regardless of how you feel about vaccinations, that's not the point. The point is the utter control over our individual rights and sovereignty. So thank you, Zen, for allowing me to have a commentary. And I know that people are probably anxious to get off the call.
Well,
So.
Michelle, I posted the link to your website down at the bottom of the chat for everybody.
Oh, thank you. It's not my website, but I am a huge fan of Barbara Lowe Fisher and all of the amazing people at nvicadvocacy.org who are keeping track of the bills and legislation. So thank you so much, Anne, for putting that up.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's the main question I want to end the call with is who has the right to your child's body, right? Who, and that is through injecting vaccines or what type of food with what type of chemicals on it, and what type of electromagnetic frequencies, right?
Yes.
Who has the right to do that? Who has the right to that that pole outside of your house? And if these telecom companies are paying your homeowners association a buttload of money, right, to be able to do that, who gets that money, right? Or if your neighbor is getting a bunch of money, but that affects you, how come that's not like side stream smoking, right? How come somebody else gets to impact my health or my child's health because they want to get some rent money, or because, you know, they think that they believe in this herd immunity thing and everybody should be vaccinated, right? Or they don't think that pesticides should be on a food label, and, you know, our kids are being fed pesticide GMO food at schools, right? Like they think that they should have the right to make a profit. And I love what Zoe said. One of our Moms Across America members said a while ago. She said, you know, a corporation's right to make a profit in no way should supersede or surpass, right, a mother's right to protect her child. And that's why we have these calls. That's why we connect. That's why we share information with each other. I really appreciate everybody being on this call, and all the information that our speakers shared with us today. And please do keep going to momsacrossamerica.org and check out our blogs. And if anybody ever has information that you want to share and do a guest blog, we are more than happy to welcome your information. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. It was wonderful to be with you tonight. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.